Hello and welcome to another jungle video. Since we seem to be on the back end of the mid-season changes and heading towards Worlds and the end of the season, I thought it would be a great idea to make another top junglers as a lot has changed since my last episode. And of course I'm going to preface this entire video by saying this is not a cut and dry tier list, but rather a list of the best performing junglers in solo queue at the moment, along with all the changes that have happened in the last couple of months. If your particular main that you have good win rates with or are climbing with at the moment is not in this video, it does not mean that they are terrible or useless. It just means that they perhaps aren't as strong as the other choices out there, but if you are having success with them, by all means carry on. But if you're hard stuck, you're bored, you don't know what to pick, hopefully some of these can help you win some games or perhaps find your new main. With that out of the way, we're going to look at some of the top picks that you can choose in solo queue right now, from AP to Assassin to Fighter. Tanks sadly are not really on the feature list anymore. Then we're going to look at a few off-meta options I've selected based upon low player rates and decent win rates that you can use to surprise the enemy. And finally, with a few picks that may have been forgotten and nerfed, but are still somewhat viable, just not at their previous strengths. And now I don't think we need to worry too much about who's at the top of the tier list with Graves and Taliyah. Clearly Graves has been there a while. Of course Taliyah is the new one to this list. The changes to a kid along with the movement speed and long range ultimate means, well, she has everything a good jungler wants, especially in the early game with scuttlecraft control, strong deathly combo, hard CC, as well as burst damage. Long have AP junglers been left out of the jungling lineup, but finally you have one that is a strong mage pick, but definitely has a higher skill cap and there's more time to get used to. And now the next jungler is one I mentioned in the previous list, but has definitely escalated up the ranks due to nerfs and changes around the mid-season. Nocturne is destroying everyone. I actually rate him a lot higher than most, I think, just purely because from a solo queue sense, I mean, you're seeing him in the professional play as well, but from a solo queue sense, his snowball potential and his ability to farm extremely quickly, taking other enemy jungle camps, his own jungle camps, reaching 6 a lot sooner than anyone, and of course then doing things like this. Naturally, his pre-6 ganks aren't exactly the most devastating, but if he gets a good angle on you with his fear and spell shield as well as his Q trail chase down, you're not gonna have a fun time. He has one of the highest ban rates in solo queue as well, so if you really don't like facing him and you don't want to play him, you know what to do. We're gonna move now onto Shaco because of course Xin has been here for a while, we know what he does and it's still so effective in this meta. Shaco on the other hand still slips by with a good win rate and a decent pick rate. One Trick's definitely enjoying his current state, it hasn't really changed much recently. Given his unique style of play and his ability to really snowball a game when fed, it's no surprise he still remains a strong solo queue presence. Finally, I debated about who to put on this front page. Of course I'm not making a cut and dry tier list, but I think one that's a little bit underrated and who is quite strong is Wukong. His damage spike is absolutely ridiculous at level 6. He's got the knock-up, he's got a gap closer, he's got a bit of camo, he's got a little bit of everything that really suits this fast-paced earlier game meta. And of course everyone always forgets that something like a Wukong has an insane teamfight presence with that AoE knock-up ultimate, and you can work around the Kha'Zix with that, and even if you're in a bad situation where you think you're gonna die, or you do die, you usually can get off enough damage to grab a kill before you go down. We're actually seeing top and mid lane Wukongs as well, so if you're looking for a simpler jungler to snowball games, you're tired of having apes in your team, become the Monkey King yourself and carry everyone. Alright, moving on to our second page where none of these picks are necessarily that much weaker than the previous page, and we'll start off with everyone's favorite nightmare AP jungler assassin, and that's of course Evelyn. She's in a significantly better spot than she has been in previous months during this season, and that's because, guess what? There aren't any tanks, that much CC running around, everyone wants to be a carry, everyone's taking everything they want everywhere. Well, Evelyn loves that. If you're squishy, I can pull Rabadon's decap and we can take care of business. When you have a lot of squishy targets and limited peel and limited CC, Evelyn has a lot of fun. And of course, like Shaco, her nuance comes in terms of positioning and using that camouflage to your advantage, and so if you want to put in a little bit of time to play slightly differently, Evelyn's a great carry in solo queue. A lot of damage, once you get a little bit fed, easy takedowns. I have a few guys on my channel, so if you're interested in that, go right ahead. Next up is another one of my mains, Warwick. He has definitely been taken down a notch since the last Top Junglers episode, and people are sleeping on him a little bit. He still does all the things he used to do. It's an early game meta, and if you get fed as Warwick before the late game, you can be very, very strong. And I just released another gameplay guide about how you can carry a game even if your team is behind and you need to have more of a team fight presence. He's great at that as well, you just have to know what to do. So Warwick, faster on the map, lots of ganks, a low elo king still if you're looking for something to get yourself to gold. In the second half of the season, I still recommend Warwick. Alright, now no one take offense that Kindred is third on this page. Again, there's no particular order, just pages. Kindred is definitely doing very well at the moment. After repeated buffs to their kit, I will be doing a video on this at some point, but buffs to the heal and the W in the most recent patch, as well as additional changes before, have shot Kindred up in popularity from being a long forgotten dead jungler into something that's remotely viable again. Kindred does match up well against a lot of the current meta, but doesn't have too much fun against Shaco, Xin, Nocturne. You can win these games, but of course it can be a little bit rough in the early game if they're invading and have lane priority. Kindred's nuance comes from having lane priority and understanding how to read the enemy jungler in terms of tracking, as well as read the enemy laners, and that's the difficulty there. You can use them in any elo you like, given their state at the moment. However, the advanced nature of being able to read the map means it's a little more difficult to sort of carry yourself. But nonetheless, a much stronger pick from the buffs and part of the meta at the moment. Okay, in the bottom three in this page, Udyr, Trundle, and Yi, all three still present in the meta. Udyr, of course, with a much stronger presence. He's maintained that 53% win ratio most of the season. He is much more impactful in the lower MMRs, of course, but he's still viable at any level. And of course, with the reduction of tanks, Trundle has less of an impact given the nature of his ultimate, but his early game, his damage, and the way he functions is still very much the same. People have moved away from him a little bit, but he is still a strong pick for you. You can really faceball everyone with him once you get a little bit ahead. Don't sleep on the Trundle. The Yi I'm mentioning because he's very popular. He still has an insanely high ban rate because of the funneling strat, as well as just in general because of how he is. His win rate has been reduced a little bit, but he's still Master Yi. Okay, moving on to the next page. Starting off with the Rengar and the Nidalee, you're seeing higher elo players pick them up a bit more. And of course, in Korea, if you look at op.gg, Nidalee is rated quite highly. Rengar is still doing his thing. And his win rate definitely isn't as high as it has been in the past, but if you can get fed, if you know how to work around the current meta champions, which you can have a rough time into, things like the Warwick, you can still get fed and really snowball a game. There's definitely a strong jungler to spend a lot of time on mastering his different playstyle and exploiting the sadness of all the squishy targets out of the map. Same thing as Evelyn. When they're squishies and you're Rengar or Evelyn, you're gonna have fun. He just isn't as powerful into some of the meta champions, which means he's a bit lower on my list. But if you're willing to put in a bit of time, go right ahead. Jax and Kayn I'm going to skip over because I've talked about them a lot in the previous top junglers. Kayn also has 2 specific champion guides on my channel, which I will link in the top right. Next up, I want to talk about Fiddlesticks. Now, in Korea, he's showing up only as a support. He doesn't even register for jungle stats. But a lot of these support Fiddlestick mains, or people who love Fiddlesticks no matter what, do take him in the jungle. Naturally, he has a rougher time into things like Evelyn when you can fully charm and get your combo off, but with your E poke in lane, or in the case of the jungle, with your Q, you can definitely have a lot of impact in setting up the rest of your team's CC or burst damage while they're feared. And let's not forget that ultimate, which is meant to scare the crap out of people and AoE everyone down in team fights. And I'd be remiss not to speak about Lee Sin, the world's most popular jungler, along with Kayn. Apparently, they always show up in the top of the pick rates. But again, he's still doing what he does. You can have an early game, you can level 2 gank. He does have that skill cap on him, but everyone enjoys it because it's fun. His win rate isn't the best because of this, but once you've become masterful at early game pathing and exerting insane amounts of pressure on the map, Lee Sin is still an absolutely viable and good jungle to use. Now, for a bit of fun before I show the forgotten junglers, I give you here a selection of a few junglers who I think are not played enough, but are definitely viable and have decent win rates to play around. You can see them on your screen now, and I'm going to show Poppy in the footage because Poppy specifically for me is something that I've seen creep up a little bit more. And of course, as Kindred players all know Forest within the NA server, he's a master tier 1 trick. He plays Poppy quite often when Kindred is banned. If you're looking for an early game powerhouse, looking for ganks, reading the enemy jungler, having a lot of pressure and closing games up quickly, Pantheon's a great pick. He was even picked by Dark and Rift Rivals, and a few other high elo players do play him more frequently than you would think. His win rate isn't the best because of course you need to know how to close out the game, but if you want to exert the pressure and get wins in a faster time, Pantheon's your guy. And of course, I always recommend Amumu for the lower tiers if you're looking to carry your team out with a hard CC champion that can be tanky, and you can also build a little bit of AP if you like. And finally, Ekko AP Assassin Jungle, video on my channel for that. And I've seen a little bit of Quinn cropping up, versatile pick in that you can take her top lane as well. Strong burst damage, unparalleled speed and roaming with her ultimate. Definitely something that is a great solo queue pick. And all of these picks have around a 1%, 0.5% pick rate, and at least around a 50% win rate, except for Pantheon, which is a bit lower, but I explained why. And to close this video out, I present to you a few nerfed and forgotten junglers that are still viable in solo queue. Camille got hit a little bit harder with her direct nerfs, and that's taken her down a notch. The Kha'Zix ultimate changes means, well, he stopped being an invisible thing that could fly around the map with no one seeing him whatsoever. Jarvan and Nunu both have been at the top of the tier list this year. Nunu most recently with the funneling strat, so he got changes directly because of that. Jarvan got a few changes recently, and people are sleeping on it a little bit, but he can be a great solo queue pick. You've got the CC, you've got the ganks, level 2, level 3, level 6 power spike, all of that is still there. And let's not forget Skarner. He was, well, you know, insanely irritating for most of the season, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend for most elos. His rune rate's about the same from bronze all the way up, but he can still get the job done in the right matchup. Alright, and on that note, that concludes our streamlined version of top junglers. I tried to get in as much information and suggestions as I could in a short amount of time. You have a good selection of junglers here to choose from the Forgotten to the APs to the very straight meta if you're only concerned with elo and you're okay playing Graves 1,000 times in a row. You know, more power to you. But there are definitely a few niche picks or off-meta picks there suggested as well. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and comment if you did enjoy this video. Please subscribe for more content coming soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.